Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. And welcome back to FOMO Friday. We love to bring you the stories of the week because you're not listening to propaganda media anymore, and you want to know what's going on around the world and with, even around you locally in some cases, or nationally at least. And so we don't want you to have that fear of missing out. And so we bring you those stories of the week, and we have a few this week. Want to get right into it. There was a major Supreme Court decision that came down yesterday, Thursday. The U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday allowed mail orders of the abortion drug mifepristone to continue. Yeah, to continue. That's sad, right? This is handing a major defeat for the pro-life movement while litigation over the pill continues. So it's not actually making a final decision on this. This just allows it to continue while they debate. In an emergency order, the court temporarily blocked a federal appeals court ruling that struck down a Biden-era policy that allowed the abortion drug mifepristone to be prescribed online and shipped by mail. The unsigned order provided no legal explanation. Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas dissented. Quote, "The court's unreasoned order granting stays in this case is remarkable," Justice Alito wrote. "What is at stake is the perpetration of a scheme to undermine our decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, which restored the right of each state to decide how to regulate abortions within its borders." Justice Thomas went further, describing the mail distribution system for mifepristone as a criminal enterprise. Quote, "Applicants are not entitled to a stay of an adverse court order based on lost profits from their criminal enterprise." He said they cannot, in any legally relevant sense, be irreparably harmed by a court order that makes it more difficult for them to commit crimes. It's hard to argue there, right? After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the Biden administration expanded nationwide access to chemical abortions under rules finalized in 2023. Women could obtain the drug through telehealth appointments without an in-person doctor visit. Can you imagine? The majority of abortions in the United States are obtained through medications. I just heard yesterday almost 3/4 of abortions now. Usually a combination of mifepristone and a second drug, misoprostol, according to the Associated Press. Now, Louisiana challenged the Biden-era policy under the Administrative Procedures Act, arguing the FDA relied on flawed and non-existent data while eliminating safety protocols. The Daily Wire previously reported that the FDA acknowledged it had not adequately studied the safety of remote dispensing and is still conducting a review with no clear timeline for completion. It's been years now, right? At least 3 now. Yeah, the 3-judge Fifth Circuit panel held that the regulation, which has continued under the Trump administration, was likely unlawful. Quote, "Every abortion facilitated by FDA's action cancels Louisiana's ban." The federal appeals court wrote this, emphasizing that such harm cannot be undone. Manufacturers of the abortion pill quickly filed emergency appeals, asking the Supreme Court to intervene. Acting alone, Justice Samuel Alito entered and then extended an administrative stay of the Fifth Circuit's ruling, which is a short-term procedural order that freezes legal proceedings so the full court has time to weigh the issue. So, in other words, what's going to happen in the meantime while they are deliberating over the case? Well, on Thursday, a majority of the justices appeared to agree with the abortion manufacturers, overturning the block in a significant setback for pro-life advocates as the litigation drags on. Quote, this decision keeps deadly abortion drugs available by mail and telehealth, where preborn children are killed at home and women can be abandoned, coerced, and left to suffer alone. This is what Lila Rose, a prominent pro-life activist, said on social media. The FDA must act now. And in response to that, the resignation of FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary creates an opportunity for the agency, the FDA, to return to its mission of protecting the public by ensuring drugs are safe. Now, whether Kyle Diamantis is running the agency long term or the administration expediently appoints someone new, now is the time to address the most significant public health crisis of our time: the widespread distribution and mail order abortion drugs. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, the Biden administration recklessly stripped away basic requirements for the abortion drug mifepristone. I'm having a really good time with the name of the abortion drug, right? Such as in-person doctor's visits. And the intention was to expand abortion nationwide if Roe v. Wade was overturned. This mail order policy has published and actually has pushed abortion drugs into pro-life states, violating their laws and ending lives and endangering women and girls. And it's still in place. This Biden policy is the reason abortions have risen, not fallen, in the post-Dobbs era, with more than 1 million unborn children dying annually. Even in states with strong pro-life protections, tens of thousands of abortions persist each year, driven in large part by this unchecked spread of mail-order abortion drugs. We know 90,000 abortions are occurring annually just in the states that protect life all throughout pregnancy. Mifepristone is manufactured and distributed to kill unborn children, but it is also highly dangerous for women. In September, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. confirmed that the Biden administration twisted data on abortion drug safety and there would be a necessary review. Studies indicate that even when these drugs are given in person with oversight, as many as 11% of women who take these drugs experience serious adverse effects, including hemorrhaging, infection, and sepsis. Peer review research further shows that roughly 3/4 of emergency room visits following abortion drug use are classified as severe or critical. According to the FDA's own label, abortion drugs send approximately 1 in 25 women to the ER. I mean, what other drug would be approved with those type of numbers? This is just horrific. This policy shift has also created fertile ground for abuse. Without in-person screening, there is little to prevent coercion or forced abortions. Cases like that of Rosalie Markezic, whose boyfriend allegedly ordered abortion drugs online from California and pressured her to take them against her will, highlighted a disturbing reality. When you peddle drugs online to anyone, vulnerable women and their children are left exposed to manipulation and violence and irreversible harm. Thankfully, Republican attorney generals have challenged the Biden policy, with one case brought by Louisiana rising to the top, of course. And of course, as we know, the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals recently moved to halt the FDA mail-order abortion drug policy. But of course, we know at this point the Supreme Court is still going to look at the merits of the case. They're still going to go through that, but they have struck down the the ban on the drug at this point. So looking ahead, the path forward is clear. It is time for the FDA to return to the standard of in-person doctor visits that was in place during the first Trump administration and to fully study the drugs. While it is, of course, my hope that mifepristone will be completely taken off the market someday, going back to basic safety standards will allow pro-life laws to take effect and add a critical layer of protection for women. Face-to-face evaluations allow for screening and ectopic pregnancies, to assess gestational age, to identify risk factors, and to detect signs of coercion. Public opinion strongly supports this approach. Polling consistently shows that 71% of Americans, including majorities of independents, Democrats, and even self-identified liberals, favor reinstating in-person medical oversight for abortion drugs. I mean, why wouldn't you? Now is the time for the FDA to do the right thing and the politically smart thing. Return to the Trump administration policy in-person doctor visits to save lives. I mean, if you have an ectopic pregnancy and you don't know it, you take these drugs, and there's nothing that's going to happen except you're going to be in the hospital. This is just ridiculous. And while we're at it, let's talk about the marriage crisis that we are having in this country. Now, in 1960, nearly 85% of prime age adults, those between 25 and 54, were married. Today, that figure has collapsed to roughly 54%. That's terrible. The Daily Wire reports that, however, the atopic marriage data conceals that America's marriage rate is propped up by immigrants. While 64% of foreign-born adults in America are married, fewer than 52% of native-born American adults are married. That's a 12-point gap. Without the steady arrival of immigrants who still prioritize marriage, America's marriage rate would even be lower, and consequently, so would the birth rate. At first, one may think that immigrants are more likely to be married because many of them arrive, through marriage. But two facts disprove this argument. First, there was no gap in the marriage rate between immigrants and natives as early as 1970. The second, when we divide immigrants by how old they were when they first came to the United States, it becomes clear that the younger immigrants are, when they arrive in the United States, the more they look like the average American when it comes to marriage. Culture is driving the decline in marriage, and immigrants and their children are unfortunately assimilating into America's low marriage culture. So when you look only at immigrants who arrived in the United States before turning 18, and thus well before marriage-based immigration could explain their presence, they still marry at a higher rate than native-born Americans. But when you compare immigrants who arrived before age 10 to those who arrived as teenagers, the pattern is unmistakable. The more years an immigrant spends growing up in America, the less likely they are to even marry. The marriage gap between native-born Americans and immigrants who arrived as young children has completely vanished this century. This is what assimilation looks like, except in this case, it is a bad thing. Immigrants aren't bringing some exotic disease called low marriage rates with them. They're catching it in America. It raises a question that should haunt every American who still believes families are the building blocks of a free society. What exactly are immigrants assimilating to? The answer becomes even more disturbing when you look at the second generation. That is, the U.S.-born children of immigrants. Second-generation Americans grew up in households with two married parents under one roof at rates their native-born peers did not. They lived in neighborhoods that were more likely to provide upward mobility, and they enjoyed unparalleled opportunity in the richest country on earth. But every reasonable theory of how culture is transmitted, they should be the strong defenders of marriage. Yet, they aren't. The children of immigrants don't just match the marriage rates of multi-generational Americans, they often underperform them. Among college graduates, the children of immigrants are less likely to marry than college graduates whose families have been here for generations. The pattern holds across every major ethnic group: white, black, Hispanic, and Asian. The kids who grew up with married parents are now marrying at lower rates than the kids who didn't. After controlling for age and education and ethnicity, Americans with one immigrant parent marry at a rate of 3.3% less than their multi-generational peers. For Americans with two immigrant parents, the gap widens to 4.8 percentage points. Whatever cultural advantage their parents brought from abroad reverses in a single generation. The most striking case is among Black Americans. Black immigrants marry at a higher rate than native-born blacks. While about 55% of Black immigrants aged 35 to 39 are married, only 35% of native-born blacks are married at the same age. Yet, second-generation Black Americans marry at roughly the same rate as multi-generational native-born Black Americans. The same story repeats in every ethnic and educational subgroup. Approximately 85% of Asian immigrants in their late 30s are married, the highest rate of any subgroup studied, and consistent whether they have college education or not. Yet, only 63% of American-born children of Asian immigrants get married. That's over a 20%, a 20-point drop from the Asian immigrant rate. A similar phenomenon occurs in Hispanic immigrants' marriage prospects, which collapses to match native-born Hispanics in a single generation. So what are young Americans assimilating to? They're assimilating to an American culture that increasingly treats marriage as optional and unnecessary. The children of immigrants are immersed in a culture saturated with messaging that, that careers come first, that commitment is risky, and that families are a lifestyle choice rather than the foundation of human flourishing. The sad consequence of immigrant marriage assimilation is that the third generation won't be as numerous or prosperous as the second. The defenders and detractors of immigration alike, this poses ironic challenges. Defenders of immigration often point to the fact that immigrants exhibit conservative values for being more being more likely to marry, but this doesn't last. Opponents often say that immigrants don't assimilate, but in this case, they do, however undesirable. If immigrants and their children marry less often, then they will have fewer children and should be less threatening to the native population in the eyes of opponents. The decline of marriage isn't mainly a story about economics, but one of culture. The children of immigrants are marrying less often than their peers, whose families have been here for generations and whose parents were less likely to be married. Immigrants are assimilating into American marriage norms, and conservatives really shouldn't want that to happen. So, unfortunately, the numbers there are not going well. But we do have a bit of, I guess you could say, good news. I mean, it's at least it's been discovered, right? A Southern California mayor resigned from office on Monday after being charged with acting as an illegal agent of the People's Republic of China, is what the Justice Department announced. Yes, she was a spy. Eileen Wang, 58, of Arcadia, California, agreed to plead guilty to a single felony count that carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. Wang, who is a Democrat, by the way, was first elected to the 5-member Arcadia City Council in November of 2022. And the city operates a rotating mayoral system among its elected council members. So she has resigned from the city government and vacated her position as mayor, according to the city's website. And Arcadia has more than 54,000 residents and is located about 13 miles northeast of downtown Los Angeles in the San Gabriel Valley. Now, prosecutors say that between 2020 and 2022, Wang and her former fiance, a campaign manager, his name is Zhongying, or Mike, he goes by Mike, Sun, and he's 65, of Chino Hills, and acted at the direction of the Chinese government officials, coordinating with the U.S.-based individuals who advanced Beijing's interest by spreading pro-China propaganda in the United States. Sun pleaded guilty to acting as an illegal agent of a foreign government and is serving a 4-year federal prison sentence. Now, under the plea agreement, Wang admitted she never notified the authorities that she was acting in the United States as a PRC agent, saying, quote, individuals elected to public office in the United States should act only for the people of the United States that they represent. This is what Assistant Attorney General for National Security John A. Einsteberg said. And he said, it is deeply concerning that someone who previously received and executed directives from PRC government officials is now in a position of trust, of public trust at all, but particularly so because that relationship with the foreign government had never been disclosed. Now, Wang and Sun, according to the DOJ, operated the U.S. News Center. It's a website that presented itself as a news source for the local Chinese American community. Prosecutors say the pair acted on orders from Chinese government officials to publish state-sponsored propaganda. And in one example cited by the prosecutors, a Chinese official contacted Wang through a messaging app in June of 2021, and with pre-written news articles, including an essay published in the Los Angeles Times, claiming there was no genocide in Xinjiang and no forced labor ties to cotton production in the region. Of course, minutes later, prosecutors say Wang posted the article on her own website and responded to the Chinese official with a link. Quote, so fast, thank you, everyone, is what the Beijing official responded. Quote, all Americans should be alarmed to learn an elected official was brazenly spreading propaganda on behalf of the Chinese government. This is what Patrick Grandy, the assistant director of the FBI's Los Angeles field office, said. And in November of 2021, Wang communicated with an elite member of the PRC intelligence apparatus who regularly attended Chinese Communist Party functions, including military parades, and met personally with PRC President Xi Jinping. Now, the charges come amid President Donald Trump's trip to China, of course, this week. Trump arrived on Wednesday evening and met with President Xi. And so, I don't know if they talked about this or not, but yeah, this was not good. And at least it has been fettered out now at this point, right? Well, I wanted to end on a celebrity end of things here, and I'm not a country music guy. I'm not a celebrity guy, and I'm not country music guy. Sorry, but I'm going to bring you this because I thought it was really good. And Eric Church has had a record year plenty of times, but the Carolina-born country singer can now say he gave one heck of a commencement speech, and yes, his guitar skills were included. The diehard Tar Heel fan gave the commencement speech at a University of North Carolina ceremony on Saturday, where he used six strings to deliver a sermon you don't hear too often on campuses anymore. Church compared the six strings of his guitar to what he described as the six pillars of life: faith, family, your spouse, ambition, community, and you. Church began with the biggest string on the guitar and the biggest pillar in life to him, which is faith, saying the people who tend to their faith in ordinary seasons do not come undone in extraordinary ones. He said they still hurt. They still sit in hospital waiting rooms asking unanswerable questions at 3 a.m, but they have a foundation to return to. The world will try to untune this string through business, through slow accumulation of a full schedule, a full inbox, a full life. Listen to me. Tend to your faith, not just when you're broken, but when you're whole. Church also went on to stress family, telling the new graduates to call your people. He says family is the string that makes you feel like you're not alone in the room. I want to warn you about something. You're about to get busy in ways that feel important, and many are professionally ambitious, building the life you've been pointed toward for years. And family, because they love you with a grace you will spend most of your life trying to deserve, will rarely demand your time. They'll tell you they understand, and they'll mean it. Do not take them up on it. When describing the heart string of the guitar, Church said it holds the guitar together like a spouse holds your life together. Quote, find your best friend, someone you want to talk to at the end of a long day. Look for shared values over shared interests. You don't need to love the same food or music. You need the same compass. Though it would be a benefit if you both hated North Carolina State. Obviously, he's a Tar Heel. The Grammy winner has been married to his wife since 2008, by the way, and encouraged the UNC alums to find the person who amplifies their faith in every aspect of their life. Quote, the person you choose to share your life with is the most important decision you will ever make outside of your faith. After picking the next guitar string, Church explained how ambition and resilience pull in opposite directions, but he encouraged them to keep pursuing their goals regardless. When he said, and when you fail, and you will fail, get back up, tune the strung, and keep on playing, he said. For the fifth string, Church got serious when explaining to the Generation Z crowd the importance of true community and getting offline. He said this generation of new alumni faces a world of temptation, specifically the temptation to perform for an online crowd of followers. Church urged the crowd to resist and instead plant yourself. When he said, put down roots with the full intention of growing there. Learn the actual names, not usernames, of the people around you. Volunteer, coach the team, build the thing your community needs, even if the intent will never, even if the internet will never see it, he added. And the final guitar string Church described was the high E string, which he told the crowd represents the graduate. Quote, social media is going to show you 1,000 versions of life that looks better than yours. 6 strings of life, and willingness to keep them in tune. 6 principles, 6 pillars. When all 6 are in tune with each other, the chord your life makes is full and resonates and true, he says. He also said that all 6 will drift, not 1 or 2, all 6 in their own time, in their own season. Your faith will go quiet when you need it loud. Your family will get complicated in ways only the people who love you most can complicate things. You will go through hard seasons with your spouse. Your ambition will hollow out, and your resilience will wear thin. Your community will start to feel like an obligation, and your world will try to sand down the edges of exactly who you are. But when this happens, this is what Church reminded the crowd there at UNC, this is not failure. He says, this is irrevocable universal experience of living in an imperfect world that doesn't stop to let us tune up. And the difference between a life that sounds like music and a life that sounds like noise is whether you stop and listen, whether you're honest enough to hear which string has drifted out of tune, and humble enough to make the adjustment instead of just turning up the volume and hoping nobody notices. Church wrapped up the speech by telling the graduates to tune up their 6 strings of life before breaking out into his hit, Carolina. The reaction on social media from the crafty commencement speech proves why he's called the Chief, that he has 10 number 1 songs, but for this hit, he didn't even need the radio. Encore. So I really like that. Thought I should share it with you, and maybe maybe you will see one of those strings that needs to be tuned up in your life. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.